Welcome everybody, and we are ready and about to start with the last webinar from the cycle of webinar of the project EYES Entrecomp to create youth employability and social value, a long-term project developed within Erasmus Plus Youth in the capacity building K-Action 2. Action that gives the possibility of cooperation to countries both from the EU and the neighboring countries. In our case, 6 countries from the Euro-Mediterranean area are involved: Italy, Spain, Greece, Tunisia, Egypt, and Jordan. Our project is aiming at providing educational tools to involve and provide more will to young people to be involved within social entrepreneurial ventures, to create their own ones or be part of some of these ideas. And we are realizing different tools for it, among with this cycle of webinars, which is concluding today with the webinar about leadership. The website of the project can be found now on the chat. In the website, you find right now some of the tools that we developed already, including research on the state of art about knowledge of young people and needs, about understanding how social entrepreneurship works to create their own new social enterprises, as well as different good practices already developed, tools for education of young people, and ideas for workshops to realize in this topic. And soon more will be uploaded. Among them, all the different recordings from the cycle of webinars that we are concluding now will be available on the website, and for everyone that subscribed in the previous application form for that. If you take a look to it as well, you will find the list of our partners. From January, I remind you that we're going to be implementing some pilot workshops in these 6 countries. So if you are from Italy, Greece, Spain, Tunisia, Egypt, or Jordan, don't miss the chance to be part of them, and try to contact the organizations that will be running them, that are the partners of the project. You can find them on the website, and maybe you will find a spot in order to be a participant in these opportunities. The general container of social entrepreneurship-youth.eu, which I'm linking to the chat as well, contains also links to different other projects which are connected with the topics of social entrepreneurship and young people. So in case you want to even upgrade your knowledge even more, find more tools, resources, and other ideas, as well as network through our platform with other like-minded people, you can take a look there, and you will find answers to all of your doubts. Of course, all of it is in development, and we accept suggestions as well as contribution. So if you have other projects that you would like to see featured in it, we are very happy to receive it and to include them in our platform. Just a few reminders before we start it all. Please keep your microphone muted while the presentation is going on, so we avoid any kind of disturbance for our distinguished speakers and presenters. And as well, if you have any kind of questions, curiosities, inputs, other additional things that you would like to know and ask to our speakers, do it through the chat. We might not immediately respond, but we will make sure that we do it by the end of the presentation. The webinar is supposed to last a maximum of 1 hour, so in the last 10 minutes, we will provide space to answer to all of your questions. So even during the presentation, don't be afraid of writing on the chat and take this chance, since the fact that you are participating in the live webinars is giving you the chance to interact directly with the speakers, fact that will not be available, of course, for people that will be watching them now. The webinar that we are using to conclude our cycle is about a very interesting topic, is about leadership, soft skill, which is very important and fundamental as well for people that are aiming to run a social enterprise. And it will be run by our partner from Tunisia, Les Scouts Tunisiennes. And I have the pleasure to have here the coordinator, Maher Trabelsi, which in a second will start the presentation, together with one speaker as well that has been invited by them, which will provide us additional insights on the topic. Maher, floor is all yours. Feel free to start whenever you want.
Thank you, Federico, and welcome to everyone. And on behalf of all the participants, I would like to welcome our distinguished speaker, my friend Sarah. Sarah Snoussi is like one of the active leaders in civil society and Tunisia, and especially in social entrepreneurship. She's working currently like as strategic communication manager with the company Magenta, but also she had so many different positions before that, like the head of stakeholder engagement with the Open Startup International here in Tunisia. And I think she worked a lot with many social enterprises, and even I know she started some like startups here herself. So Sarah, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the warm introduction. Welcome, everyone. As Meher, thank you very much for the holistic kind of introduction. And yes, so my name is Sarah Snoussi again, and I'm currently working as Strategic Communications Manager for Magenta, which does social and behavior change. So we kind of look at what drives people's behavior, what are the barriers and enablers to a certain behavior, and how can we change behaviors of individuals, either for social businesses or for development agencies, like, you know, we work with the UN, USAID, and implementers all across the world. And also I've worked at Open Startup International, which is an NGO that started here in Tunis, targeting startups, social startups, but also all types of startups here in Tunis. But we grew to be an Africa-wide program, and we now have the organization now has operations in Morocco, Senegal, Jordan, and we have collaborations with US entities. So I've basically worked with, you know, entrepreneurs all across Africa, and it's always been a pleasure and a thrilling experience to meet entrepreneurs and to talk with entrepreneurs, and especially social entrepreneurs, because it's really difficult to try to do social work, but at the same time try to make profit and try to think of startups that you know want to make profit, but also, you know, have social impact. And that's something that always gives me passion, or passionates me, if the word is to be said. And I want to start this session by saying that social entrepreneurship, in fact, is, again, a difficult exercise. It's not something that is very evident, and there's a lot of trial and error in this sector, and we need to accept that as a startup or as a social business, in the beginning, you're just experimenting with different models, and what allowing any individual, in fact, even based on my experience, those who made it or those who were able to sustain at least for a couple of years were those that had good leadership skills. And those leadership skills is what's going to allow you to not only sustain your business, but also lead your teams and look at the problems that are going to occur in a constructive and open way, that you can build on and that you can advance and build your business with. And so it's very, very important when we talk about leadership and social entrepreneurship that we are mindful of those difficulties, and that we say, again, this is not a hard science. I mean, there are so many theories about how to lead in social entrepreneurship or what are the best practices, but it's always good as a social entrepreneur or potential social entrepreneur to be humble, to be curious, but to always also be open to new horizons and new ways of doing things, and looking for the method or the style that works best for you and for your entity. And that's why I said it's all about experimentation. So to give, and just before I carry on, if there are any questions, I would rather this be a discussion rather than a lecture, to be honest. So just if you have any question or any reflections, just raise your hand and we can have a discussion about any of the points. So before we start, I wanted to introduce social entrepreneurship, which we can, kind of give the definition of it being the use of innovative business strategies to address social and environmental challenges. We can say that strong leadership is crucial in guiding and inspiring teams to tackle complex societal issues and create meaningful change. Social entrepreneurship requires strong leadership to drive positive change and create sustainable impact in society. And I wanted to say here also is that as social entrepreneurs, and I want to be very frank, I don't want to say things just to make anyone happy, or, these are my beliefs, at least. I've worked in entrepreneurship a lot, and I think even social entrepreneurs need to think of their businesses as actual businesses. You should not think about it as an NGO, and this is a trap where a lot of social entrepreneurs fall into when they're creating social businesses, is they're only thinking about what's my social impact, what am I doing for my beneficiaries, and they're not thinking about profit or how are they generating profit in order to sustain that startup or that social business. And it's very, very important to have that in mind. When you're creating the business, is that this is a business. If you want to create an NGO, create an NGO. If you want pure impact without, having profit, create an NGO, and that's fine. And you can apply for funds, and you can just only think about meeting your impact metrics. But in order for social endeavors to sustain in the future, you need to have a profit mindset. And the idea is to say this is why I will give you a couple examples of styles of leadership that are applied in the social entrepreneurship context, and I gave some of them that led very successful businesses, just like Steve Jobs or others that we will see later on in the presentation. And I want to start again, I want to say that there are hundreds of thousands of styles of leadership, and we could not go through them in 1 hour. I just try to choose those that are usually relevant for social enterprises or social businesses that think about impact and try to tackle societal issues. And one of the first styles I wanted to talk about today is transformational leadership. And transformational leadership means that inspiring and motivating followers to reach their full potential. So you're thinking about people who work with you. You're thinking about the employees, the partners that you have in your venture, and you're asking yourself, how can I allow everyone to reach their full potential in order to allow the entity to reach its objectives, which is being innovative, having the social impact that it wants. And so what are the key characteristics that you need in order to be a transformational leader? You need to be charismatic. You need to have, so again, like you have to, as I said before, you need to ask yourself, which style works for me, for my personality, and for my venture. So if you don't consider yourself someone who's highly charismatic, it's fine, but this style of leadership would not necessarily work for you, if you know what I mean. You have to have a very strong vision and a very clear vision, not necessarily like detailed vision, but I know what kind of impact I want to have on the world, right? Whether you want it or not, I mean, this Apple has so many controversies around it on production or whatever, and Steve Jobs' personality, but everyone agrees that Apple right now has been associated with innovation, and it makes everyone feel we're using an Apple product, innovative and it's like it's the product that designers use. And so the vision that the company had from the very beginning of being like the innovative company, the one that everyone wants to align with, the branding that they wanted to achieve, they actually achieved it, and they're sustaining it even years later, just because the vision was very clear from the beginning. Intellectual simulation is extremely important as well in this transformational leadership, because people, in order for them to reach their full potential and in order for you to attract good profiles, you need to intellectually stimulate your team. It cannot be people who are just doing operational stuff. You need to engage everyone in the strategic discussions. You need to engage people in high-level conversations in order for them to be included in that vision and to help you drive that vision. And so the ability of a leader to intellectually stimulate the team or their partners, whatever you want to call them, their co-founders, is extremely important. And you can do that through just being intellectually curious yourself, but also through doing efforts where you're looking for ways of training your coworkers or your team. You're looking for training opportunities. You're looking for articles that are interesting. You're looking for books. You're sharing, as I said, like the strategic vision, and you're engaging everyone in those strategic discussions that you're having. And also, lastly, the key characteristic that this transformational leader would usually have is individualized consideration. So you're not considering averages and like the average employee or the average team, at least at the beginning. You're thinking about each person individually. How can I use or capitalize on the skills of each person in my team in order to make the best of them and the best for the company? And the more you're able to do that, the more people will feel empowered and feel seen. And when people feel seen, they're going to give more energy, and they're going to feel that, you know, this job means a lot for them as individuals, and they're going to help you achieve your vision for the company. And those key characteristics are really important if you want to, you know, be part of the transformational leadership kind of style. And let's talk about it applied. So for instance, I gave examples before, but these are pertinent for Steve Jobs. These are things that are known that Steve Jobs did them. So for charisma and vision, he communicated a compelling vision for the future of technology with unmatched charisma. And everyone, I think, remembers or should see at some point of their life the first launch of the iPhone 1, and to see how the charisma with which he represented the product, the breakthrough, the technology, the confidence, everything it shows that person and that leader has charisma and vision as major traits of their leadership. And so I really highly recommend that you watch, if you did not watch that launch event. There's a lot to learn about strong, charismatic leaders who want to be in this transformational leadership realm. Transformation of Apple. Transformation of Apple. He led Apple through an era of innovation, revolutionizing the tech industry, intellectual simulation. He encouraged a culture of creativity, resulting in groundbreaking products like the iPhone and the iPad. And so this is a leader that does not limit people, right? This is a leader that says, whatever, be creative, create something that never existed before, go through the limits of what already exists. And the ability to do that takes a lot of courage, and takes, as I said, it's part of the intellectual simulated, because people don't feel boxed. People feel that, you know, they have the ability to create something new and to change something in the world. And that's extremely, extremely important for motivating your team and making sure that you're driving your vision forward. And the last but not least, individualized considerations, valued unique contributions, emphasized attention to detail, and that's extremely important, right? Like what is each team member bringing to this team, and making sure you value that in team meetings, right? Thank you for contributing to that. Thank you. I want to congratulate X for doing this for the company. I want to make sure to say that you don't only talk about the problems in the meetings. Also make time to highlight people's achievements. And when someone goes beyond their limits to do something for the company, you need to make sure to highlight it, because that's how you, again, as I said, you make people feel seen and motivated and part of your vision. And so in a nutshell, this is what transformational leadership is. And so if you feel that that's a style that works for you, then I hope that you experiment with it. If it doesn't, then we can move on to the next kind of style, which is servant leadership. Servant leadership is putting the needs of others first fostering personal growth, and building sense of community. So servant leadership is about, I'm as a leader, if I want to summarize it, right? If I want people to serve me, I need to serve them first, because these people are in this organization. They're not here to serve, I'm here to serve them. And so servant leaders, you'll find them like extremely close to their employees. You'll find them very helpful. You'll find them even serving their employees coffee or food. I mean, they're very altruistic in that sense, and they're very much in the serving kind of mindset. And the idea of servant leadership is that when I serve people, that's when I show my respect and show that I'm empathetic. I am I'm with you, I'm there. And that's and this style is applied in social entrepreneurship, some social entrepreneurship ventures. Yes, not very commonly, I would say. It's mostly in the development world. I mean, we see it a lot in peace building initiatives, and someone like Nelson Mandela is known to be a servant leader. What are the key characteristics? You have to be a listener. You have to be someone that knows how to listen to people, that's empathetic, that heals, that's in the healing and reconciliation kind of process and mindset. And you have to be aware of yourself, especially. You have to be aware of your limits, yourself, what you do, what's the impact of your actions are on other people. So if you feel like you're super empathetic, maybe this kind of leadership style works for you. And if we want to talk about applications, especially in Nelson Mandela's life, of these several characteristics, we can say that, for instance, when listening, Nelson Mandela actively sought and valued the opinions and perspectives of others. Empathy, he demonstrated deep understanding and compassion, especially during challenging times. For healing, he focused on reconciliation and unity post-apartheid, promoting healing with South Africa. And for awareness, he maintained a keen awareness of social issues, driving efforts for positive change. And I just want to say something before we move forward, is that your leadership style, again, this is not like hard science. It could be pick and choose from several styles, right? You can say what I like about servant leadership is this aspect of listening. I want to be listening to other people. I don't want to be authoritative. I don't want to be coming to meetings with my assumptions about what people need and want. I want to be able to listen. But mostly, you could be on a spectrum of a lot of leadership styles. And that's why it's very important that you get knowledge about these leadership styles. But it's up to you, again, to choose which ones, or create your own leadership style that works for your own personality, but just looking for traits that are more relevant for you and for your company. Moving on. So what we call authentic leadership. It's genuine, self-aware, transparent leadership that fosters trust and openness. The key characteristics for authentic leadership is, first of all, self-awareness, rationale, transparency, balanced processing, and internalized moral perspective. So for authentic leadership styles, I'm going to go directly into its application with Bill Gates, and talk for each key characteristic at a time. For the first one, it's self-awareness, acknowledge strengths and weaknesses, adapting leadership style accordingly. And this is what I said. Again, like, it's authentic leadership actually allows you to navigate a lot of leadership styles and to experiment with a lot of leadership styles. And one thing that Bill Gates was known for doing is that acknowledged strengths and weaknesses of each style out of his own behavior sometimes, and he adapts his leadership style accordingly. He might say, he was known actually to come to meetings sometimes and say, I'm sorry, like that was something that I did wrong. And I acknowledge that, and I'm going to change this, that. And so to be able to self-reflect is very important if you want to be an authentic leader, or if you want to include authentic leadership in your style. The second characteristic is rational transparency, and he was known actually for fostering open communication, sharing thoughts and decisions transparently. You should not be afraid of your employees. You should not be afraid of your partners, even if you have to make hard decisions. The idea is that everything should be in mere transparency, even though it comes with the challenges. And if you want to be an authentic leader, you cannot hide anything from the people working with you. You should be extremely transparent about the processes with which decisions are made. When an emergency comes, you should be able to allow everyone to know that emergency. You should not just let people in the blind or make them feel that you're making top-down decisions. This is very, very important if you want to be perceived as an authentic leader that people believe in and people trust. The third characteristic is balanced processing, which means that, I mean, in the case of Bill Gates, he consider diverse perspectives, encouraging collaboration, inclusive decision-making. And again, being a leader, and I've seen this a lot in young entrepreneurs where they tend to be, you know, I know what I want to do. I'm not going to change my mind. I'm like very laser focused on what I want to do. I mean, people like Bill Gates became Bill Gates because they consider diverse perspectives, because they listen to other people, because they believe, you know, that the richness that comes from other people's perspectives is just very important. That when you're in your mind and you're thinking about something that you're excited about, you tend to not see the drawbacks, you tend to not see the weaknesses, and that people who come at your ideas with an objective mind might bring a new perspective for you and actually enlarge, enhance, amplify ideas. And it's very, very important as a leader to be mindful of that. But also you have to encourage collaboration, inclusive decision-making. And again, as a leader, you should be very mindful that the people working with you are not competing against each other. And a lot of times leaders can actually incentivize that by valuing individual work, right? And so you always have to make sure as a leader, are my constituencies or my employees or my partners collaborating together in order to reach decisions? It's not only you that has to collaborate, it's the culture that you have to spread around you as well. Because if your team is competing against each other, then you're creating a toxic environment where people are hiding information from one another and they're thinking about their individual success more than they're thinking about the organizational success. And so being able to encourage collaboration as a leader, this is actually something that not only concerns you as a person collaborating with other partners, but it's also about spreading a culture and making sure that you are controlling for that and making sure that you're that's the culture that you're creating within your organization or within the spaces that you operate in, and fostering, encouraging collaboration, inclusive decision making actually makes organizations reach their objectives easily or more collaboratively. And finally, internalized moral perspective. Bill Gates was actually known for leading with a strong ethical compass, prioritizing integrity in business and philanthropy. And this is ethical conversations in social businesses is specifically, I mean, in other startups, everywhere it should be a thing, but specifically for social businesses, right? If you're a social business, ethical consideration should be part of the discussions with the team and should be something that you take into consideration. We are here to make profit, yes, as I said in the beginning, but how can we make sure that we're not harming anyone? How can we make sure that we're not harming the environment? How can we make sure that we cannot be perfect, right? Even as individuals or as entities or whatever, but how can we make sure that even in doing that, we're not harming anyone? If we're reducing a number of jobs on a certain thing, how are we compensating for that? Ethical considerations are always something that you have to keep in mind, because as the company grows, in fact, that's something that will come up. And we all know, for example, for Apple, all the drama that happened about employing little children or mine some of the primer products for Apple devices. And right, that's something that can haunt you later on the process, even when you grow and become like a giant company. And so making sure that everything is sourced and everything is done in an ethical way. And again, like nothing's going to be perfect. It's very difficult to control for everything, but just being mindful of ethical considerations is extremely important, whether or not you want to choose this leadership style. So before we move on to as I said here, there's a very big importance to using several leadership styles, right? You have to experiment. You have to know which style works for you, because you can assume, yeah, I mean, I'm a charismatic person, I can be a charismatic, and then like you try it out and it's not working, because charisma is not something you think or you think you have. It's something that you project. That it should be perceived in a certain way, right? People have to think you're charismatic for charisma to work. If people don't think you're charismatic and you're thinking you're charismatic, it does not work. So again, like, you have to experiment and not make assumptions. You have to be open. You have to be mentored. This is something that I really, really always say to entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs. Try to look for people who are older than you, that have experience and that have some sort of the same path that you want to follow, or that someone that you look up to, that you have regular conversations with. Send an email to someone that you trust, someone that you look up to, and say, can you be my mentor? And ask for a conversation once every 2 weeks and talk about leadership, right? Say, like, I'm doing this in my team, this happened, what do you advise I should do? I did, and be very transparent about your mistakes. No one is perfect, and people who have made big companies and successful ventures and successful initiatives have been able to say, I was wrong here and here and here. And so doing it at a very early age is very beneficial, actually, and it increases the likelihood of you being more authentic, not only to whatever you're doing, but to yourself, and allows you to grow more constructively in your ventures. And so it's very important to experiment. It's very important to have a mentor, but it's also important to use several leadership styles at once. And this is where you start to experiment. Again, this is not hard science. You're not looking at one style and saying, this is me, I'm a servant leader. Sometimes it's not good, because there are situations where you need to be an autocratic leader. There are situations where you have to be a collaborative lead. I mean, there are several styles that would work for each situation, and it's up to you to experiment. And so using multiple leadership styles is crucial for leaders to adapt to diverse situations and team dynamics. It maximizes overall team performance by applying the most effective style for specific tasks and enhances communication tailored to different needs. This approach accommodates individual strengths and preferences, fostering a more inclusive and supportive work environment. In times of crisis, leaders can shift styles to address specific challenges, contributing to effective crisis management. Embracing various leadership approaches supports continuous improvement and helps build organizational resilience and navigating uncertainties more effectively. Ultimately, the flexibility to employ different styles is essential for leaders to thrive in a dynamic and ever-changing context. And I'm so sorry for the long text. I just thought it was pertinent to actually to have that, and I don't know if Meher will be sharing this conversation so people can have that in a corner of their mind if they want to check why is it important to actually use several styles of leadership. I want to stop here and say, is everything clear until here? Because I still have that one slide, I think. Is everything good? Are there any questions, any reflections on what's been said? Any other leadership style that someone thought about that I did not talk about? Okay, I guess not. I don't know if you can hear my 6-month-old in the background, but I'm sorry if you do. Okay, next slide, please, Meher. Okay, so 7 leadership traits for a successful social entrepreneur. Again, we talked about styles. As I said, there's not one style that's very that's hard science, but there are some traits that we know that they're very important for successful social entrepreneurs. The first one is being revolutionary. There's a saying that my mentor said to me once, is that if people don't laugh at your idea first, it's not a good idea. If people are not laughing at you in the beginning and they're saying, oh, you're crazy for thinking that you're going to do that, it's not a good idea. So be actually revolutionary. It's fine. It's fine to be revolutionary. It's fine to, at some point, think about, of course, the feasibility and how you're going to achieve that. But think about all the products that changed the world, and think about what was going on in someone's mind when they were actually developing that idea in their mind. Like, think about Tesla, or not Tesla, the first electric car, I would say. Like, oh, a car that runs on electricity and that looks, and is as fast as any other car. People would think that's crazy. That's revolutionary, right? But it's actually doable. People were actually able to do it. So being revolutionary is extremely important. Having a rock solid self-belief. And that's why it links to the first point, is that when you're revolutionary and people are laughing about your idea, you should not let go. You should have a solid self-belief that you have the ability to execute that idea and be able to move forward. And again, your idea that's in your mind right now could not be that's the final product, but you should be in an iterative process and in a trial and error process that's a mind flex, a mind that's always ready to pivot when you test for customers and something doesn't work, or you do feasibility studies, or you try to experiment with a prototype and it's not actually working, but you're able to be flexible and change. But having that solid rock solid self-belief is very, very important, and it actually projects not only to the partners but also to investors, potential investors and potential partners in your team. If you don't believe the product can actually work or the venture can actually change something, how do you want people to believe and work with you towards that goal? It's very, very important as a leader to have a strong self-belief. It's not ego issues. There's a thin line between being arrogant and having self-belief. You should not be arrogant. You should not think of yourself as better than anyone or everyone in your team, or everyone else being stupid because they don't believe you. You should have a self-belief that you have the energy and the drive to make change in this world, or to achieve a certain vision. The how, you're going to figure it out throughout the way, right? The how might change, but having that strong self-belief is very important. But again, be mindful of ego issues. We don't want people to be arrogant, or because that could go the opposite way. Knowing the art of delegation. Again, as a leader, you cannot do everything, and you need a team. We cannot emphasize enough how much you need the team. Someone, like even when I was working as a jury member or a coach to multiple startups, if someone comes to me, one person, and they're like, oh, I have a startup. No, I mean, go look for a team and come back, and then we can talk. We cannot talk with one person and say you have a startup. It's you need a multidisciplinary team. If you're an engineer, you would need someone from the business world, you would need a designer, you would need some other skills in order to make sure that your business is thriving. If you're someone from a business world and you want to create an app that does, and you don't have a CTO, you don't have someone who knows technical stuff, then you do not know, it's not going to work. There's a low probability that it's going to work. I don't want to make assumptions, but there's a low probability that it's going to work. So knowing the art of delegation and being able to create a team around you that to delegate some aspects to your project to is extremely important. And that's the hardest part actually in creating a business, is finding a solid team and finding people that you trust that you can delegate to. Working silently is something very also important, because a lot of entrepreneurs, especially at a very early stage, tend to over communicate about their work, right? And they get into that trap of, oh, I'm a C, and everyone is a fan of this. They go on LinkedIn and CEO of a startup. They don't have anything. I'm a CEO of a startup that's called blah, blah, blah. And then they start, being invited to events and going into that spiral of over communicating. And then when you get into that ego spiral, I call it, you're not actually working. You're not actually dedicating things to doing the actual, communication is very important. It's just being mindful of not overdoing it, and working silently actually allows you to focus at least while reaching certain milestones. Once you reach a milestone, it's fine. Go out, communicate, talk, test. Talking about your idea is extremely important actually to get feedback, but it's just make sure to not overdo it, because that can harm you. Being result oriented is also a trait that has been known to be very successful for good entrepreneurs. Is that, okay, what's the immediate result? I have a good vision. I want to change water consumption in the world. Okay, that's a very good vision, but what are my results in the next 3 months? What are my results in the next 6 months? Being very result oriented and thinking short term as long term is extremely important as well. Being an opportunity seeker is also another very important trait, because as an entrepreneur, you can have a strategy, of course, on how you want to grow, but being able to capitalize on opportunities that come along the way is also a trait that is extremely important. And that actually links back to knowing the art of delegation, because as a potential CEO of a startup, you need to have part of your time to do business development and to do fundraising and to do partnerships. And if you're doing everything yourself and you're not delegating anything, you're not going to have time to capitalize on any opportunities. So being an opportunity seeker means you're attending conferences, you're always on the look for what's new, you're growing your network, you have mentors, you're looking for investors, you're constantly trying to grow a community around your venture in order to create more opportunities for success, for finding employees, potential people who can help you in the startup, potential investors, potential people who can partner with. Any types of partnership can be helpful, especially at an early stage. So being an opportunity seeker is very, very important at a very early stage. And then last but not least is risk taking. And by risk taking, it could be calculated risk, but it's very important to be in that mindset that you can risk stuff. And that's the idea of starting small, right? You can start small, don't invest a lot of money and try to have prototypes that are very simple. Risk. And it's fine to fail, right? It's absolutely, those who did not fail didn't make great products. If you don't fail, that's actually a bad sign. And the more you fail, the more likely you're going to win next time. So it's fine. Fail and be proud of that failure, own that failure, even communicate about that failure, because that's what makes you a resilient entrepreneur that's able to change the world. And when we actually were running a support structure, we always love to see entrepreneurs who have tried 2, 3, 4 startups, because those have more experience. Those know when things are going to fail, and they would know how to navigate kind of failure better. So don't be afraid to take risks and accept failure as part of the entrepreneurship process, because that's what allows startups to thrive. And if you look at all the ventures that were able to make a change in the world, they actually failed at some point, or failed a lot actually. And one example that I always give there is the founder of Pinterest. I was in a conference once in San Francisco, and he was actually a speaker in that conference. And he said that before Pinterest, he created 10 websites, and all of them failed. And at Pinterest was the 11th, and even the idea of Pinterest was stupid to a lot of people. It's like, oh, I'm gonna put pictures on a dashboard, and those pictures are just gonna act as an inspiration for other people. It sounds stupid, but then this product became kind of revolutionary in the arts industry. And now every time you want to make any renovation in your house, or you want to be inspired about any art product, you directly go to Pinterest. And that's something that because the founder was revolutionary. He had rock solid self-belief because he wanted to do something special. He was delegating, he worked silently, he became result-oriented, and he was also a risk taker. And he embraced failure and did not fall from the first kind of failure. So that's what I have for today. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope that I shared my experience a little bit with you, and that was fruitful. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take any reflections.
Thank you,
Wow.
Sarah. Yeah, thank you for this presentation, and happy with this experience, sharing like your let's say what you have learned as like a social entrepreneur about leadership. And I'm happy like to hear if there are any questions, and I'm sure that Federico, he has some questions for you.
I always have, yeah, you're right. I'm just like answering to the people that are now very happy about the presentation. I would like to thank you as well, Sarah, for the very insightful and I believe useful presentation about leadership, very inspiring. I'm answering to the people asking in the chat if they will have access to this presentation and to the recording of the webinars, and how. And yes, of course, like everybody will have access. We will upload the recordings in the website, and everybody that subscribed for the webinars will receive as well the notification via mail containing the link to get access to them. So no issues, all the material will be available, and you will have opportunity to check it again. Meanwhile, as I was telling, of course, you can use the opportunity to ask some questions right now. So besides thanking for the very nice presentation, you can still write down in the chat if there is any other point that you would like to raise or something that still is clicking in your mind and you are curious about. And I will start by my question. My question is this. Of course, like in a given organization, in a given enterprise, there can be like a board. There can be like different people that are taking decisions together, or maybe people leading different projects, products, launching of different services within the same enterprise. How do you think is possible to choose who is the best fit to lead a certain package, a certain part, a certain group of people maybe? Should the group itself be able to express preferences as well, or how much it depends on the values of the organization itself? Just curious about this. And what do you think about it?
This is an interesting question. I don't think that it has a very evident answer, but I would give my my thoughts on this. I think, first of all, if I was put in a situation where I would choose someone to, delegate, I would ask, you're asking the question as if it was me making the decision, that if that means something. So first, I believe that a leader should think of themselves as a leader. I could not, choose someone to be a leader of a group when they don't see themselves as a leader at all, right? People need to own leadership and feel that that's something that they're comfortable with. And I think it's very important that we have the same understanding of leadership. Leadership is not telling people what to do. Leadership is being able to drive change and drive results. And how do you drive that? Through the people, and with the people. You just come with a decision, you do this, you do that, no, it's just, we have a common objective. A leader is just able to listen to other people, to other team members. They're very result oriented, they organize, they know how to reach results, they can think strategically, because not a lot of people have this skill. A lot of people are very operational, I tend to find, especially in organizations. I mean, a person who's able to go up a ladder, right, to think high level. So being able to own leadership, being able to think high level, seeing yourself as not like authoritative, but rather like knowing how to work with other people in order to achieve common goals. Someone who's likable, someone who people like and feel comfortable with. And you can't, I mean, again, it's not the case, sadly, in a lot of in our organizations in the developing world, where usually people who go into up to leadership are just hostile and hard and authoritative, and it's just not the culture that I believe is the best and that is sustainable. So again, people who own leadership, who are likable, who can think strategically, and who have the willingness and ability to work with other people towards common goals, and who are able to acknowledge everyone's participation. People who can say thank you for doing this. People who find themselves in meetings and say, I did not work on this alone. This person helped me, and I want to thank them for doing it. People who don't want to take all the credit. Leaders have to be in the background. They cannot be in the front. And they should be pushing people in the team to the front for celebration. So that's what I believe makes good leaders in good teams.
Super. Thank you for the answer. Of course, yeah, there is often not an evident answer to this kind of challenges and ideas. That's why I think it's very good food for thoughts, and also to remind ourselves that often there is not just like one way to solve a certain issue, but multiple ones, depending also on the context, on the people involved, on the issues that we are working about, and we have to make sure that we are able to see different possibilities rather than just going in one direction without any other sense. I don't see any other answer in the chat, but a lot of thanks.
Yeah.
There is one, yeah, okay.
No. I mean, there is no many questions, but most of the people, they are saying thank you to Sarah. But I know she has like another meeting in after 6 minutes. But I will try to benefit from this opportunity to ask a question as well myself. Yeah, we were talking about like celebration, Sarah, and here like we know it's very important for like the leader to celebrate the success of his team, but we need to remind people how much it's important for like the leader to celebrate himself like or herself like the success as well, like as individual. So what do you think about this? How much is important like for like the leaders when they learn something, or even when they fail and learn something new, do they have the right to celebrate as well?
It's a tricky question as well. I mean, I'm gonna give you again my personal opinion. It could be, you know, not shared by other people. I think that leaders do not necessarily need celebration in like a stagey way, right? I think the success of the leader is in the success of the team. That's where they're actually successful, and that's the celebration. That's the intrinsic motivation that should happen. And I've seen it in a lot of leaders that inspired me a lot, that there are people who have their happiness brought from other people in their team being celebrated. And trust me, when you celebrate people in your team will celebrate you in ways that you never thought about. And I've seen ways that, you know, in their birthdays where they do, you know, like bouquets of flowers, and they do very thoughtful gestures for the leaders, because that leader is really not thinking about themselves, and they know that that leader derives their success from their success. And people are very cognizant of that. People are reconnaissant. I don't know how to say this in English. They're very faithful. Yes, faithful, or they're thoughtful, and they recognize. They recognize when you do something good for them. And so I think leaders should be celebrated by other leaders, right? Or by the success of the organization. If you're like an N and you have an N+1 and there are other people with you, I mean, you should be celebrated by your N+1. If you're the highest ranked person in the organization, then your celebration is just by you're the face of the company, or you're the face of the organization, right? You're already celebrated because you're invited to interviews, and you're invited to events, and you're talking about the success of the company. But it should not be about you, because when the employees or people or partners or whatever you want to call them in an organization feel that they're working towards someone's dream, they're not motivated anymore. They need to think that this entity is beyond one person. It's beyond individual dreams of a certain person, right? You're working together towards this entity that we're all equally distant from. Maybe founders are going to be more engaged, it's fine. But the more they feel the distance between the leader and the entity, the more people, I think, are going to be, you know, more likely to work harder and to celebrate the organization more. So yeah, that would be my answer.
Thank you so much. I would say, like, again, thank you to Sarah and to all the audience for like being here. And I will give like the last word to Federico to close the last webinar. Yeah.
Thank you, Maher, and thanks again, Sarah. We set you free in a minute so that you can go to your following meeting, just by thanking you again for the eye-opening speech and presentation. Again, for everyone that followed our webinar, and in general our cycle of webinars, a million thanks, and we will be in touch very soon to provide you more information about the project. Please keep following us and what we are doing within Izentracom to create youth employability and social value, as we hope that we can provide you a lot of other insights and useful tools for your journey as social entrepreneurs, youth leaders, educators within this field, and drive change in our world for the better through that. Thanks a lot, and see you soon.